on Go Live.
Hey, Coach Holbert. First of all, thanks for letting me visit with the classroom today. And it's a great opportunity anytime we get to meet with the youngest voters that we could have an interaction with. It's a great day. And just a few minutes, let me get familiar with the class and who you've got in there. How many seniors do you actually have in the class there? Raise your hands.
None. This is mostly a sophomore class. So
hey, so sophomore. So I guess right now the most important thing on a sophomore's mind, I think, would be probably getting my driver's license, looking at what colleges is going on, prepping for the SAT, that kind of stuff. Is that kind of the ballpark where you guys are at? Yeah, don't everybody jump up and holler there at once. I want to thank the young lady who called yesterday to set this up. I've had a couple of students out of the class there ask me questions. I'll give you a quick introduction. I was born and raised here in Western North Carolina. I'm a Warrior from Irwin, married a North Buncombe Blackhawk, but have played ball against the Falcons, the Eagles, Jets, Rams. You can name it. We've been in the community. Left here in 1984, joined the Army, served for 37 years, from private to colonel. It was a great way of life, and I just retired after 37 years. And the last 5 years, I had the opportunity to advise Congress on Russia, Ukraine, along that whole 2,400-mile border. And I had the opportunity to link in and talk to congressmen about power projection, our roles in NATO, and that's what really got me into thinking about politics and running for office. Because I had the opportunity to discuss our military with our House Armed Service Committee, our Finance Committee, and our foreign policy. And as you guys seen what unfolded there in Afghanistan, the way we left there, I was very disappointed. I didn't know the 13 young men and women that lost their lives, but I was responsible for sending them there. And I take that to heart whenever we make decisions about our national treasures. We need someone in this seat with a little bit of experience. So that's kind of my background. Went on to the University of South Carolina after leaving there, got a degree in criminal justice. Went to the University of Florida, got a master's degree in strategic studies from the War College and a degree in supply chain management. So I'm more than just a military soldier. I've also got a business portfolio and an international strategic affairs portfolio. So I've got a pretty in-depth background when it comes to running for this office. But I'll framework why I'm running, and then we'll get into some questions here. My wife is a NICU nurse, and I am very much pro-life. She fights for a child after they're born. I'll fight for them before they're born. And then my oldest son will graduate on Saturday from ETSU. So I know what your parents are going through right now when it comes to college tuition. I've got one graduating. From there, he will join the Army. I've got another child that's a sophomore at East Tennessee State. He just graduated also from Buncombe County Law Enforcement. We got 6 decades of law enforcement in our family. We back the blue. We believe in law and order, and we believe that no one is above the law. And then my last child will graduate in 2 weeks from North Buncombe High School. And we believe that parents should have a role in our children's education. Now, as far as what I talked to you about yesterday, the top 2 priorities for me locally. First is constituent services. Constituent services is the place you go to on the ground where you link in with your congressman and you can ask questions face to face of him and his staff. Whether it's, hey, I want to apply to a military academy to get a nomination. I need help getting Social Security straightened out, my taxes fixed, anything you can think of that you need federal assistance with. And right now those offices have been closed, just a little bit because of mismanagement, and we've got to get that back on track. And then communications. When you've got state and local government not communicating with the federal government, everybody's walking and operating in the blind. And we've got to get that straightened out to where we know what each other is doing. And then at the national level, thing that's on everybody's mind right now is inflation. You can see the cost of gas at the pump, $4. And then to get that under control, there's a couple of mitigating steps we can take. One is to stop deregulation and let entrepreneurs and our businessmen and women go to work without having regulations placed on top of them. We got to stop spending at the national level. Our national debt this year was $3.2 trillion. And that's just a number that got so many zeros after it, it boggles the mind. But we've got to get that under control, because what that is doing, it is mortgaging our Social Security and our future the way we're spending. And the next one is we've got a southern border that is open, and we've got immigrants coming across that border. And all immigrants are not bad, and I don't want to paint that picture to you. There's a lot of good people trying to come into this country because we are a great country. But there are some that bringing in opioids and also some human trafficking going on. And each of our counties in this district are now border counties. And we've got to get that southern border under control. We've also got to get our north, west, and east borders under control, because of the way we left Afghanistan right now. There is an existential threat coming from that part of the world. So that's the big picture items. So, all right, who's got the first question? Give me a hard one.
Raise your hand if you got a question you want to ask. Somebody's got to have courage to speak up.
All right, I'll pick on, how about Kayla? Where you at, Kayla? You're the one that reached out to me, I think. What was your question?
Do you think being in the military had influence on your political beliefs?
Hey, Coach, you're going to have to get her to come up to the mic so I can hear her.
See where that little red dot is there.
Do you think being in the military had influence on your political beliefs?
Oh, absolutely. So one is a very disciplined way of life. It's a very regimented way of life. But it also exposed me to the 4 elements of our national power. And those 4 elements are diplomacy, information, military, and economics. And all of those lines of effort are synchronized to reach our national objectives. So if we've got a country that we're trying to persuade to do something, we always want to start first with our diplomacy, and then we'll have an information campaign, and then we'll go to an economics campaign, and our last resort will be military. But it's called the dime. And as we leverage our dime to achieve our national objectives, I was exposed to that with the House Armed Service Committee, the Finance Committee. So the military has played a big role in my life, from discipline to leadership. You know, our military service is founded on honor, integrity, and selfless service. So I lived a life of that, and I believe that our constituents here in Western North Carolina want a congressman that has that kind of background. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks. Raise your hand.
All right, Sophia, where you at?
She's hiding in the corner.
I'll have the same question.
Go there and do one of your questions so you can Sophia's clear.
No, it was like all 3 of us. They have to pay for the questions down.
Okay, what is your opinion on the Trump administration?
All right, what's your name?
Jenna.
All right, somebody tell me her name again.
Jenna.
All right, so my opinion on the Trump administration. I had 7 commanders in chiefs throughout my military career. Deep respect for every one of our commanders in chiefs. President Trump was great to the military. He had, I'm going to focus first on the military. He took our nuclear triad and at their air, sea, and ground nuclear capability and invested a lot of money in it. And that makes us one of the most formidable countries in the world. So President Trump in the military was great. Man, President Trump's economic policies, you can't beat him. And if you look at what he did for the country and where we're at with our price of fuel, where we're at with supply chain management, and we had a good way of life as far as job markets and our economy. Now, like most people, you know, I could live without some of President Trump's tweets and some of his remarks, but, you know, that's who he was. And I can't fault him. If you serve with anybody from New York or New Jersey, you know that's the kind they are. They're brash. They're in your face. But I'm a hillbilly from North Carolina. I can get right back with them, so it didn't bother me.
Somebody else have a question? Leland.
Okay, so I know, like, one of your bigger problems was inflation and the national debt going up. and I also know that you're a big military guy. So I was wondering, do you want to see military spending going up or down?
Oh, that's a great question. So we talked about that $3.2 trillion. 800 billion of that 3.2 trillion is our national defense. Our military industrial complex has not been reined in, has not been had an overwatch in place for years, and it really comes down to the men and women who are in Congress right now do not have the capability or the capacity or the experience to question the military industrial complex. So we are actually in Kosovo right now operating, and that conflict ended about 30 years ago. We're still in the Sinai operating, and that conflict has been over for a long time. So I think there's places where we can cut and we can optimize our military, but in no way do I want to take away from military readiness because we've got to keep our readiness, because for us to keep our peace, we got to have strength. And that goes back to the Reagan peace through strength capabilities and his foreign policy. So can it go down? Absolutely. I think I'd rather use the word optimization. And I would like to see every department inside of our government get cut. I've got a plan called the GOP, and GOP for most people is the grand old party. That's what the Republican Party is. But for me, it is government optimization plan. I want to ask each department to cut 20% over the next 3 years. Department of Education, Department of Justice, Homeland Defense, National Institute of Health, all those programs, let's cut, and then let's have a contract between the voters, Congress, and those organizations that they can operate at that lower level of 80%, and then come back and let's negotiate. Do you need more? Do you need less? But we've got to start somewhere, and that will help us reduce that national budget. So it's more than just military. It's across the board.
All right, so I've got one of what was your opinion on like school closures and lockdowns over COVID?
Man, great question. So I do not believe we should have had mandates in place. I think that the mandates and the masking is an individual decision, but I do not want to put anyone's health at risk. I am not a doctor, by no means. So listening to our national leaders when it comes to health is the right thing to do. But throughout my career, I've had advisors. I had legal advisors, environmental advisors, engineers. I even had a culinary arts advisor at one time. And, you got to listen to your advisors. But in this case, I think we let our medical decisions become political decisions. And when they got overlapped, we got sideways. And I would rather see the local level school boards, the local level governments make those decisions. But I do not believe we should have had a federal mandate for masks. And I think we have lost 2 years of education. This year, when you guys got into class, some of you hadn't had a school assembly in 2 years. We went for a couple of years without graduation. And I think that we have put a burden on our students and our schools that was unnecessary. And we could have went about it and attacked it with a more realistic way of just being cautious and protecting each other. But no, I do not believe in the mandates. Hey, tell me your name when you come up.
I'm Olivia, and I was wondering, what's your stance on environmental problems?
So environmental problems. So we got to be good stewards of our environment, and I believe that we got to have a very diverse portfolio when it comes to environmental. Now, I was able to witness. I'm going to explain to you about Fort Knox, Kentucky. It's the size of a small city. A couple 100,000 people will live on Fort Knox, Kentucky, family and friends, and we were able to unplug from the power grid using solar energy. And that is huge because that provided resiliency and redundancy in our infrastructure. So having that diverse portfolio is very important so we can start to reduce our necessity for fossil fuels. But fossil fuels will always be in our portfolio of energy. As you get into larger construction equipment and grading equipment, you will never have enough power from an alternative source to run that type of equipment. So we got to have a balance. But I don't want the federal government involved in making that decision. It's got to be our entrepreneurs and our capitalists making decisions on what form of alternate fuel we use. But having a diversity in it, but we've got to understand that it's going to be a mixture of nuclear, fossil fuel, solar, your water, and your wind, all of that together. But let's have a comprehensive, diverse portfolio. Be good stewards, and that's the right thing to do.
I'm Chris, and could there be an alternative solution to the overall budget, well, the national budget problem, or well, not the national debt problem, such as laying off the economy to allow more economic activity to then in turn increase tax inflow to the government?
All right, man, ask me one more time. You broke up just a little bit.
Could there be like an alternative problem to the national debt, such as laying off the economy, allowing more economic activity, therefore making potential more revenue for the government?
Yeah, we got to have revenue to create taxes. Taxes is our base. And I think you were hinting a little bit about privatizing maybe some of the government services. I think that that's a slippery slope. I don't want to privatize anything to have an alternative means to provide the services. You know, our federal government main role is to provide for citizens what the states cannot provide. So at the federal level, I want very little interaction between individual citizens and our federal government. At the state level, that's a whole other issue of how they bring in economic drivers, how they advertise to bring in employment and future employers. But at the federal level, no, I don't think so. I think it's got to be decentralized down to the states, and let's reduce government. The less regulation, the less overreach, the less government we have, our economy does better. We do better as citizens. I'm not sure if that got after your answer, what you're looking for, but I don't want the government involved in any type of business-related adventures. And I'll give you one example. Right now, we've got pharmaceutical companies who are being directed and managed at the government level. I believe that violates what our government should be doing. That should be strictly an economic decision and a capitalist decision and get our government out of it.
I'm Percy. How do you feel about Roe versus Wayne and making abortion illegal?
All right, so Roe versus Wade, 1973. When that decision was made, it was a 7-2 decision at the Supreme Court justice, and it was based off of the right to privacy. It was not about the right to protect a child and an unborn child. It was a mistake in 1973 the way it was written. I did not support it. I do not support it now, and I believe that it should be overturned. But I want to be clear, I'm not a doctor, and I will not get in between a young couple or a young lady's decision with a doctor, but I do not want the federal government involved in that decision-making process. I don't want funds from the federal government to be involved in that decision-making process. I've been with young ladies throughout my career who's had to make that decision, and it's a heartbreaking decision. It's a heart-wrenching decision. And to me, there's always another option other than abortion. I'm a pro-life from conception to the last natural breath. And I grew up in a Christian home where raised on the Bible. And if you look at the sixth commandment, it says, thou shalt not murder. And I believe that's what abortion is. All right, while we got silence here, somebody tell me, how's the baseball team doing?
Right. Good.
Hi, I'm Jada. My question is about the whole abortion thing. So, but what if the woman did not have consensual, you know what
I'm
I
tracking.
mean? And then she has that baby, can she then have the choice to have an abortion? And it would, I mean, it's not, it's really her choice, isn't it?
To me, that choice is one that I will respect her choice, but I would encourage to let that baby come to term and let's find another option. But then I will not get in between a young lady and her doctor or a young couple and her doctor or their doctor. So to me, there's always another option, whether it's family or putting a infant, a child, baby up for adoption. To me, is a much better alternative. And to me, I just can't take the life of a young baby, a young unborn child. To me, that's the most precious thing we've got. I was there when my wife delivered 3 sons. And to me, that's a precious moment. And I would hate to see or even think about that. Respect anyone's decision who disagrees with me, but that's the way that I believe. And we can continue to have a conversation about it. But from my stance, the federal government should not be involved. It's up to the states, and it's really up to that young lady and that young couple and to the doctor.
Hi, I'm Sayla. Where did you come up for boots on the ground for your campaign?
That's a good question. So boots on the ground, 37 years in the military, with the last 5 years actually being in Afghanistan, uh, in Syria, on the Russia-Ukraine border. And so the boots that I wear every day right now are the same boots I wore for those 5 years. Now, I've had to put new soles on them, so don't think that I'm walking around here with holes in the bottom of my shoes or anything like that. But as we put boots on the ground in the military for 37 years, we're now putting boots on the ground in 15 counties that belong to NC-11. And we go out, we shake hands, look people in the eye, and we ask what's on their mind and have discussions. Because you have a lot of elected leaders and a lot of politicians will just talk to you through a TV screen. And I would much rather be in your classroom today having a one-on-one conversation with you, because it's more about front door screens and TV screens. Anyone can go through a TV screen, but that emotional human connection is very important and to build a relationship. So as we went out to Cherokee County for the first time, putting boots on the ground there, what I learned from the citizens is there's lakes there in Cherokee County, and the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, is draining the lakes the same way starting July 5th, and that cripples their economy. And there's other lake systems that we could desynchronize or rearrange the way that we reduce the lake levels so that one county does not have the burden every year. You don't learn that unless you go out and talk to people and put boots on the ground. Then on the north end of Buncombe County, out visiting with constituents and voters and find out what's on their mind, there's a series of bridges here up in a place called Paint Fork. It's been washing away for 4 years, and we've had elected officials ignore it. And I've gotten, the documents of where they're asking for our state senators, they're asking for our federal representatives for help, and they've ignored it. And when you go out there and walk across that bridge and you realize there's a factory with 200 employees, there's a school on the other side of that bridge, and there's a couple of dozen homes on the other side of that bridge. So putting the boots on the ground gives you situational understanding, but also situational awareness. We used to say when you jump out of an airplane, the first thing you do is look up and make sure you've got a canopy above you. That's having situational awareness. But having situational understanding means who's around you, where you're landing, and what objective you're going to once you hit the ground and how the larger team fits together. So awareness is one thing, but understanding is a whole other topic. And I believe that's what Boots on the Ground allows you to start that process. But we're proud of the campaign, the Boots on the Ground campaign.
Okay, another question. How would you feel about working alongside Democrats in Congress? Would you be willing to consider opposing
What a
Boots?
great question. So 37 years, I only cared about three things. Could you shoot, move, or communicate? I wasn't worried about your political affiliation, what race you are, what religion you are, what sex you are. There's one denomination in our country. A lot of nominators, but one denominator. We're all Americans, and we've got to go across the aisle and have that conversation and do what's right for our American public. But I will not compromise on my values when it comes to our Constitution and our rights. So when we got into a conversation about First Amendment, the right to assemble, the right to freedom of speech, the right to petition, those rights, I will never compromise on. I'll never compromise on Second Amendment. But we'll have a conversation. And one of the things that I think is important for everyone in the class there to know, we have not had bills on the floor where we have had a debate in almost 6 years. We have ignored that part of our political process with a thing called omnibus bills. And we're taking these bills and we're piling all kind of riders on them and all kind of pork on them, instead of having a debate on just infrastructure or having a debate on a national defense or national security. We put these omnibus bills together that instead of having one bill, we put a socialist agenda, we put an environmental agenda. And we've got to go back to having one bill, one debate, and one vote. And then if the person that you've elected is not there to vote, then the voters have got to have accountability and hold that person accountable. But going across the aisle, I don't have a problem with, as long as we don't compromise our Constitution.
All right, so I had another question. With all of our economic problems, like, do you have a plan to help solve those? Like, do you have any ideas in mind of like legislature or any campaigns or anything that you would try and do to help with the
All right, the first thing would be deregulation. As long as we deregulation, and I'll give you one specific. Right now, we're 80,000 truckers short across the United States. And the why we're short is, one, because of regulations that are crippling our truck drivers. If a truck is older than, I think it's 2014, it could be 2012, I got to go back and check, you could not run that truck in California. So the independent truckers are not taking loads to go cross country. So we've got to ramp back the regulations we put in place. The next thing is our infrastructure. If you go out to the ports of San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, those ports are 30 and 40 years old, and they don't have the capacity or the infrastructure requirements that we need right now to transload material that comes out from other countries that we're doing business with. So those two are huge. And then the next one is, right now we've got a large section of society that are not working. We had, I think it's 6.2 million men and women on unemployment, but 11 million jobs. So there's jobs there. We just got to have incentives to get young men and women, or men and women in general, to go to work. And then the last one that is critical goes back to our energy. Right now, as we're looking at fuel continuing to increase above $4 a gallon, we've got to open up the XL pipeline once it gets its construction complete. We've got to use fossil fuel to drive down the cost, and we've got to come up with that diverse portfolio. Because in our family's business here in Western North Carolina, we've got a pest control business, 10 trucks, 1,800 customers, and as that gas price goes up, we have to pass that on to our consumers. Now, we don't want to do that. We'd rather see that money go the other way, and once the gas prices go down, we'll be able to do that.
I pledge allegiance to
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the following students please come to the office? Ashlyn Lovely and Reese Butts, please come to the office. Teachers, just a reminder, at 12 o'clock we will be starting our ACON testing. There will be no bells or announcements for the remaining.
I apologize. They should be done with this in a second.
Testing is finished. Seniors, the elementary school walkthrough permission slips are outside of Ms. Litauer's door. Please come and get yours. Congratulations to our students. These are now Amy Rosetta Trejo, June Decker, Hannah Frazier, and Gracie Hart for their artwork in the Brevard College Small Works Art Competition. June won an honorable mention and won $50. Great job. $5 tickets go on sale tomorrow, May 6th, for our Henderson and Buncombe County Spring Dance Concert, the Red Carpet, at Blue Ridge Community College, May 26th at 6 p.m. You can scan the QR code on our flyer to purchase tickets around ahead of time, or to purchase tickets at the door. All Henderson County schools are participating, as well as Irwin High School. Soccer will be at home today versus Ashland. Baseball will be at Nicola, and congratulations to the softball team for their win last night. Have a great day, Falcons.
All right, Mr. Honeycutt, I got one last question for you. Because of your expertise in the situation in Ukraine and geopolitically, this class has done a lot of research on the Ukrainian conflict with Russia. I'm curious about what your insights are as we move away from a more counterinsurgency driven, military posture to looking forward to maybe potential larger conventional conflicts. Where do you think our shortcomings are, and where do we need to be looking forward to in the future?
There are three reasons you go to war: fear, honor, and interest. President Putin was not fearful of Ukraine. When he annexed Crimea in 2014, he got access to the warm water ports, and that gave him the ability to have his Navy in place. He did not have an interest in Ukraine. It was about honor. And the old Soviet Union was born in the old Soviet Union was born in Kiev. So it's about rebuilding the former Soviet Union. He will continue to go into Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to rebuild that Soviet Union. That will have NATO declare Article 5. At that point, the United States will get involved. But for right now, we've got to contain what's happening in Ukraine, inside of Ukraine, and not let it spill over into Moldova and the countries that surround it there. So right now it's about containment. But our shortfalls was we watched Russia build up on that border for 9 months, and we didn't do anything about it. We had the capability to stop it. We could have had this limited to a much smaller incursion than what happened, but it was the current administration's weakness that led to this. So we've got to remain powerful and remain strong to maintain peace, and we got to work within our NATO framework.
All right. Well, I definitely appreciate your time,
hey guys,
sir.
hey, God bless you guys. Have a great end of the year and have a great summer.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your time, Mr. Honeycutt. If you have the ability, if you recorded this, is there any way you could send me a copy so I could show this to my fourth period class?
Can we do that?
Yes. Once I've got it edited.